Hi, I'm Feroz Khan, and welcome to Drag and Drop Low Code Unplugged, the podcast where we explore the game changing impact of low code in software development. Join me in insightful conversations with IT leaders and passionate low code enthusiasts who are at the forefront of this digital evolution. Together, we'll explore how early adoption of low code is giving businesses a competitive edge on a global scale. We'll discuss its impact on software development, dissect its role in transforming businesses, and uncover the ways in which it's reshaping career trajectories. So whether you're a seasoned IT professional or a curious enthusiast, be sure to tune in as we share success stories and unravel the mysteries of low code. Subscribe now and stay tuned for a front row seat to the revolution that's shaping the future of technology. So let's go. Hi Mike, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How yourself?
Doing pretty well. It's Friday, so
Yeah, it's Friday. That's true. That's true. I appreciate you taking the time to, be a guest. It's great to have you on.
thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here and talking with you today. So I appreciate it.
Amazing, amazing. It'd be good to start with a bit of an introduction to yourself for those who may not know who you are.
Sure. Yeah. So quick background. My name is Mike Tarentino. We get into a little bit more, but I run the digital business advisory practice for Mendix in North America. So what that function is it helps our customers to think about how they're adopting the platform and aligning it with some of their bigger strategic goals, and then also making sure that they're getting the right value out of it. So working with them to identify the right KPIs, setting the right foundation, and making sure that they're choosing the right applications that are going to help them achieve that positive ROI out of the platform.
Amazing, amazing. And aside from your role, kind of, can you tell us a bit about where you're from? A bit of
Sure.
your personal background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am from the Boston area, grew up in this area, so pretty familiar with it. I didn't break out too far and
Yeah.
go out in the rest of the country or anything. But settled down around here. I've got three boys. They're one is getting off. It's funny. Somebody asked me the other day what my hobbies are, and I really don't have many because I've got three kids.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they're, but one of them's heading off to college next year, so he'll be a freshman, my oldest, and the
Yeah.
other one's in high school, the other's in middle. And I think the biggest thing I enjoy most is coaching them and being a part of them. They're all three of them are 3-season athletes, and
Nice.
just enjoy watching them play the
Yeah.
sports that they love. Um, on my own side, my hobby side, I think personally the way I look at life is kind of, I always try to challenge myself mentally and physically. As you get older, it can get stale. So
Yeah,
I
sure.
try to find different things I can do. Like I picked up skiing, even though I grew up in the North Shore, the Northeast. I've never skied until I was
Wow.
40. So I picked that up a few years ago. And last year, decided it was a good idea to pick up riding motorcycles. So
Oh,
just,
wow.
picking up all
Wow.
these different things
Yeah.
and trying to
Yeah.
challenge myself. I think that's kind of the biggest thing is, mentally, physically keeping
Yeah.
yourself sharp.
Yeah, definitely. That's really cool. I,
Yeah.
I I turned 40 this year. I've never skied. So it's
Still a
not just
chance.
you. Yeah. Amazing. So yeah, going back to, obviously, you've been working at Mendix, for the past, I think, coming up to 6 years. It'd
Yep.
be it'd be good to kind of rewind back to kind of where your career started and kind of how it's led to you kind of to your current role at Mendix.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny. So I started out of college as a systems analyst and a developer. So we're doing a lot of the technical stuff, working, and the way most IT resources come out
Hmm.
into the world. But over time grew up into project management and really started getting into some more of the management aspects of technology. My industries have been all across the board. I started in insurance, went to the internal side of consulting, and then I went into software and manufacturing. So I've kind of branched
Hmm.
a lot of different industries. But as I grew through, moving on from a project manager, I started getting into more consulting based functions, which was really where I realized I wanted to be. I really enjoy sort of helping from that bridge of business and technology consulting, looking at process optimization, figuring out how businesses can improve on what they're doing today, whether it's just digitizing a manual process or just rethinking the way that put their steps in order so that they can
Yeah.
streamline things, make it more efficient, and be more effective for their companies. As I went through that, I started, and as you said, I came into Mendix about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I started as a customer success director on the team. I've moved around a little bit within the organization and had a lot of good exposure to the services side, to customer success. But one of the things that always was passionate for me was kind of bringing back that consulting
Yeah.
component and making it a part of how we approach our customers. I think one of the biggest challenges we have when it comes to low code is it's a SaaS offering,
Yeah.
but it's not really, right? It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
it's not a ERP system or a CRM that has a defined endpoint and a defined use. It's really very variable, and it depends on what the customer is trying to do with it. So when I started thinking about it a little bit more, I really saw a benefit of taking the capabilities of consulting and bringing it in and helping our customers to sort of see how and where and why they would want to use our platform to help them strategically.
Yeah. And when you started at Mendix, had you heard of low code beforehand?
I
Like, did you know
actually
what low code was?
I actually didn't know. And it was funny. I was working at a consulting company and I was reached out to by a recruiter for the role.
Yeah.
And I started looking into it then. And I was able to download the platform
Yeah.
and play around with it a little bit, get used to it. And I was really impressed with it. I was impressed with the capabilities of it. Like I said, I came up from a coding environment. So I was
Mm.
used to writing SQL queries. I
Yeah.
was used to
Yeah.
writing, you know, .NET, Java, all that sort of
Mm.
stuff as well. And seeing this, it was actually funny. I won't say how old I am right now. I've already kind of tipped the scales at that one. But when I was in college, and I remember working through a lot of like object-oriented programming
Mm.
and UML school classes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at a Visio like screen and saying, man, wouldn't it be great if I could just build an app this way? Like,
Yeah.
just give me this. That's what I need for my logic. And that was the first thing that came to my mind back in 2018 when I was looking. I'm like, oh, somebody actually went ahead and did it. This is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And I really was impressed with it. I was impressed with the thought process and the fact that there's an industry around this. It's not
Yeah.
just one group
Yeah.
thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And when you kind of joined, 2018, how was, because obviously Mendix is a Dutch founded business,
Yep.
how big was your team was it kind of already quite established, or was it still growing?
Yeah. So like I said, I was the org, I think we were around 120 people or so in North America.
Okay.
I think we were around 450 globally.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that was like I said, back in 2018.
Yeah.
My team, like I said, I joined the customer success team, and I was the fourth person on that team.
Wow.
Now I think we're in the area of like 1,500
Mm.
employees globally. We had a hyper growth phase back in like
Mm.
2019, 2020,
Yeah.
that area where after Siemens had acquired us,
Yeah, of
we
course.
really kind of put a lot of focus in growing the capability. So it's been an amazing ride. The organization has changed tremendously in
Mm.
the 5-6 years I've been there. But it's a lot of good stuff, and it looks very different, but it's a lot of good
Yeah,
things
yeah,
going
yeah. Yeah, I'm interested to obviously hear, because obviously you started and it was Siemens was not involved, and then Siemens
on.
got involved. How was that kind of transition, for you guys internally, but also with existing customers?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I actually remember like specific days leading
Yeah.
up to my first day because I gave my notice on the last day of July in 2018. And the only reason I remember that was because on August 1st, I got a notice from my soon to be vice president that I
Yeah.
reported to with the press release that Mendix was being
Oh,
bought by
okay.
Siemens. So it was the next day after I
Yeah.
gave my notice. So I
Wow.
quickly called her and said, "What does this mean?"
Yeah.
And she's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
"No, everything's good. We're moving forward. Same company. Just wanted to
Mm.
let you know." I said, "Okay, fine." So that went through, and everything went well. We closed, I think, in October of that year, and it's really been a good relationship
Mm.
since then. We've maintained what they were calling at the time a freedom to act, which we
Mm.
still have a very similar model right now, where it basically says that we're not focused on just a single industry. We're not just going to be focused on Siemens industries of
Yeah.
healthcare, manufacturing, those
Yeah.
sort of things. We have customers in financial services. We have customers in university, government,
Mm.
retail, all across the spectrum.
Yeah.
And that was really our goal, was to maintain that
Yeah.
opportunity to continue to serve those, because low code's not just an industry specific thing.
Yeah.
It can help everybody. And it's been the same ever since, and we've still kept that. Now it's certainly helped having Siemens there to
Mm.
have relationships with other companies
Yeah.
already, and that's been good for us too. But I think overall it's been a really good relationship, and
Yeah.
it's something that like I said, being in consulting in the past, I've worked on mergers and acquisitions, and
Mm.
this is certainly one of the better ones that I've seen.
Yeah. 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 And since you've been there for a while now, and you've obviously been on the other side of traditional as well. How do you think Mendix has kind of, changed the landscape for customers, with low code kind of entering, and now, it's there, it's in every conversation, it's
Yeah.
kind of talked about. We were talking about earlier, obviously AI is the new kind of in every conversation, but
Yeah.
what's your kind of view on, how customers have really benefited from low code?
Yeah, it is interesting how the industry's changed, right? When we walked in the door in 2018, what do you mean? What is low code?
Mm,
And the question now is becoming more, well, when do I use which low code tool?
yeah.
And we see a lot of different customers have a lot of different tools at their disposal. But I really do think that the organizations are seeing the benefit of low code for their business. It's
Mm,
there's really kind of three main areas that when I think about Mendix specifically, but low code in general,
mm,
there's three main capabilities that it really provides, and I think organizations are starting to see it. And one of those is that tighter business and IT collaboration.
yeah.
For a number of different reasons, right? You've got the ability for non-traditional developers to get involved in the development process.
Yeah.
It's also faster. So by even if you're not a business user in the weeds, a developer is able to turn things around quicker. So at the end of a
Mm,
sprint, there's a lot more for you to see.
yeah.
And as they go through it, it's more likely constant communication back and forth of, is this the right direction? Is that the right
Mm,
direction? And it's really a much more collaborative process between the two. Um, and from that kind of leads to the second pillar of being able to create more of like an innovative environment, right? So because you're able to build apps faster and more collaboratively, getting it first time right, you're able to free up resources and be able to start testing grounds and get a little bit more into some greenfield opportunities where you can build
mm,
other applications a little bit more quickly, where requirements might not be very clearly set. So you can build
sure.
an app, test it, modify, retest, and it's really kind of a good sort of versatile tool to be able to accomplish some of those goals, especially in a low requirement,
Mm,
low knowledge sort of innovative environment. And the final is, when I think about Mendix itself, it's the platform really does serve a lot of purposes for them. It's one thing to build an application. It's
mm,
another thing to build applications and keep
yeah.
your arms around all of it. Think about it from a programmatic approach and making sure that you're getting the efficiency out of everything, and all that's going on in your environment. That's when it really starts to scale up, and that's when some of those platform capabilities really start to add value.
Yeah. And do you, obviously you're in a customer success role as well. And, low code, I think not so much now, but there is still people who think low code is kind of not built for kind of large scale projects, right? And, I
Yeah.
think Mendix proves that it is. What's the kind of feedback you get from customers when you're obviously telling them they can? Is there a bit of pushback that they don't believe that it's possible?
There's oftentimes, yeah, we do see that happening. And I think really at the end of the day, what we have to do is we talk to them about we talked to them about a couple different things. The first thing we asked them to do is, kind of suspend that belief for a minute, and
Mm,
let's take a look at what we're really trying to accomplish. Like you mentioned, we touched on AI just a little bit
yeah,
ago,
yeah.
but AI is a disruptor in the market, and it's something that everybody's going to have to be, keeping an eye on and
Yeah.
understanding how they can benefit from it. I kind of look at low code the same way. If
Mm,
you're building apps, whether you're building them in .NET, Java, or low code starts to become a disruptor in that space,
mm,
because it is something that you can really accomplish just as much,
yeah.
and be able to do it more quickly. So I think to not look at the capability or to be a skeptic of the tool, you're shutting out that openness of becoming a disruptor in the
Yeah.
organization. So I think there's a lot there that I think companies can take advantage of. I think that's it. I think, and it goes back a little bit to some of the
Mm.
enterprise platform capabilities, right? Too, is what I was
Yeah.
talking about earlier, was the that programmatic approach of developing applications, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of times when companies think about low code, they think it's, kind of like a little bit of an upgrade on the old access
Mm.
platforms, right? Very
Mm.
straightforward, not a whole
Yeah.
lot of. What they don't recognize is that these are full enterprise level tools that allow for, full development teams to be working together, branching and merging applications, so that there's, you get multiple teams working on the same projects, being able to build multiple applications and be able to integrate them into your ecosystem. That's one of the big things I think is not realized quite as much, is that,
Mm.
in today, no application sits in a silo anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to be able to connect, you need to have that integrative capabilities, and low code does bring that to the table.
Yeah.
So as they start to recognize that, I think they really start to see the value and benefit.
Yeah, yeah, and I think from doing these interviews, something that and you touched on it quite a bit, that I get told a lot, and that's a common answer is, the speed aspect of these platforms, where obviously when you go to a customer, you can show them something really fast, right?
Yes.
If they've got an idea, you can come back to them and quickly show them that, well, here you
Yep.
go, you can see it, compared to,
Yep.
traditional, it'll take a bit longer to kind of show that example of what the platform can offer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been, I have to tip my hat to some of our solution architects with
Mm.
the ability that they have to turn around some applications quickly. I
Yeah.
mean, it's obviously it's a showcase of the tool, but the people who are building it too at the same
Yeah,
time really just understand it well to be able to articulate it and build good applications quickly that showcase the capability.
yeah,
We've got, like a perfect example. We've got
yeah.
um, a offering, if you will. It's just an event that we run with our customers, and we run a public as well, called an experience day. And
Mm.
basically, in a half day, in 4 hours, we take the folks in the room, the class, through building an application. So
Oh,
within
wow.
4 hours, you start up. There's a couple
Mm.
of different components and things like that you plug in, but at the end of the day, you're building an app.
Yeah,
So it really kind of gets them to understand that, yeah, this is real. It's not somebody just kind of,
yeah,
doing something behind the scenes and making
yeah,
it look faster.
yeah, yeah. And you mentioned, in your role, you're there to guide customers of how to get the best ROI from the
Yep.
platform. And obviously it varies, per customer, right? So what would be some just kind of common, advice points that you would give customers to make the most of, the investment?
Yeah, I think if I think ideal state, I mean, obviously there's varying types of customers,
Yeah,
right? Some
yeah,
are, I need to build an app. Some
yeah.
are a little apprehensive. They want to start slow and grow into it. Others are all in. Excuse me. I think at the end of the day, ideal state, you're bringing in a platform because you're trying to introduce a digital transformation capability into your organization. And what you need to do as you're thinking about that is, what are you trying to accomplish? What are
Mm.
you trying to transform, and how are you trying to get there? So when I talk to customers about transformation, I sort of set it in three main sectors. I try to establish the vision first, so that, where do you want to be? What transformation are you looking to go through, and what do you want the organization to look like when it's been achieved? And once we get that established, we then move on to the execution aspect, which is, how are we going to get there? What applications are, and this is where we get into what we call our 5 Ps and 3 Ss. So
Mhm.
our we have what's called our digital execution practice, and they've established this sort of change management capability that allows our customers to make sure that they've captured everything as they're growing through their adoption and their maturity. So in the execution phase, I sort of bring that into it, and what the 5 Ps are is, it's around portfolio, people, process, platform, and promotion. So what we're looking to do there is, we're really trying to take that vision, like I said, and identify how we're going to achieve it. So what applications are we looking to build in the portfolio? Who are the people that we need to bring in to help that, whether it's developers, whether it's security, UX, UI, architects? Let's make sure we've got the right people at the table, the right business people at the table as well. And then we go through and look through the process we're going to use to build those applications. And then obviously the platform is the key piece. It's the platform, it's the Mendix platform itself, but it's also your broader ecosystem. So like I said earlier, applications don't just sit in the silo. So if you've got a vision of what you want your organization to look like and you're building an application to help you get there, you need to think across your whole IT tech stack to make sure you're integrating with the right solutions, that you're bringing in the right data and passing the right data on. So that's all the establishment part that we put down in place. And the fifth P, being promotion, is also a big one because that helps with adoption. The goal of that is really showcasing what you've done with the platform and what the capabilities are, so that you can, smooth out those, internal roadblocks you might have of gaining momentum and building more applications. And then I mentioned the 3S's. So really quickly with that, it's start, structure, scale. So we're not looking at this and saying on day one, you're going to have 10 teams of developers building 20 different apps in a year and, and having a fully built out organization. The goal of this is to start small, find the first quick app, find the first quick team, get them building things quickly so that they understand what they're doing. They can get their hands in the platform and get familiar with it. And then the goal from there is to sort of just grow organically, build out your teams, create multiple project lanes, and grow it out into a structured process and then scaled, where you're taking advantage of the full platform and you're building out automation capabilities and things like that as well. So that's sort of the execution part of getting into of achieving that vision. But the key piece of all of this at the end of the day is value. And it's, what are you getting out of the platform? So you've got a vision, where you want to be. What does getting there do for the business? What are the KPIs we're looking to measure success against? What are the benchmark numbers or benchmarks where we've got today? And what are our objectives? So this is going to be important because as you go through that execution phase, you can go back to the value piece and make sure you're on track. Ideally creating a couple stage gates and saying, by this month, we'll have this many apps, we'll have achieved this value, and then go on from there. It gives you an opportunity to just sort of set that bar and keep that focus as you go forward. So I think that's a lot of it. It's really the planning and setting up the right vision and process. Obviously, executive and cross-team advocacy is critical here. You don't want to just have it be in your IT department and kind of being a tinkering solution. You want your executives to see this. You want them to be behind it. You want them to be advocating for it. And across all the organizations, you want your finance team involved, your IT, your HR, your business process, all that sort of stuff too. That's really how you get success with it, is getting that momentum and the adoption.
And I guess obviously with that support and planning assistance from you guys, it's like you said, you want support from the rest of the whole business, right? So if you're delivering everything correctly from the beginning, then there's a chance you'll build a lot more within the platform, versus starting on the wrong foot.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things is in order to be successful with anything, you can't stumble out of the blocks, especially with something that's advertising real speed. If you struggle getting out of it, you're not going to get what you wanted out of it from the start. It's going to be a struggle to gain momentum going forward. It's like with anything else you buy, right? You get it for the first day, you're excited about it. You want to build something, you want to do something with it. If it sits on the shelf for a while, it just starts to collect dust. So you got to get in and get going quickly on it.
Amazing. And can you tell us about one or two client success stories that yourself or Mendix as a company are quite proud of?
Yeah, I think one of them would be I'm going to refrain from company names just in case.
No company name, that's fine.
But one of them, there's sort of two different lenses that I would take on it. And I mentioned earlier, there's a couple different ways to adopt the platform. But one of them was a couple of years ago, we were working with a manufacturing facility based in North America, but had facilities all across the globe. They had a dated MES system. Really, they were working with Siemens to update a lot of their software from that perspective, but they knew that there were other customizations and nuances that they really needed to account for as well, not just put in a single system. So they went in and they had done some research, some independent research, and brought in a number of other low-code vendors along with Mendix. to just kind of talk to and understand what the capabilities were and what the support was. And they ended up selecting Mendix, obviously. Obviously because it's our customer.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
I didn't mean obviously, but
Very confident.
yeah, exactly. No, but I'm talking about them as a
Yeah,
customer
of
right now, so they
course. Yeah.
selected us, and but they had that vision, as I was saying, and that big enterprise wide vision, and they knew what they needed to do with it. So when we go in with customers like this, especially when they're all in, we do talk to them about building out centers of excellence or capabilities of practice or those sort of things. I know there's different terminology for the same function, but this one was one that they recognized the need to have an enterprise level oversight in governance, but they also recognized that they had regional nuances. So their European facilities ran differently than their facilities in India, the same as the rest of AP and in the US. So what they actually ended up doing was built a hybrid COE model that supported it. And so those things that were consistent across the enterprise were managed at that global COE level. And those that were nuances and different, the way they were deploying applications locally, the branding, the styling, language, all that sort of stuff was all managed at the individual level. So they worked very closely they worked to have a very close relationship between those regional COEs and the global COE, and making sure that they were still sharing data across. And so, a facility in Amsterdam could share some of the knowledge and insight to a facility in Singapore and still share across that and still have that connection, but while at the same time running independently of each other and not necessarily have to worry about what those other facilities were working on. So that was really good, because what it allowed for was, again, you talked about it earlier, it allowed for them to have a direct vision. They had a plan in place, and they were able to adopt quickly. They had somewhere on the lines of, I think, 200 developers in the first 2 months sign up, register, and get certified. So they had a number of resources across the globe. The project started being run pretty independently. So we have a tool that allows you to see across the environment and see all the different applications that are being built. And there were a lot of different applications being built. So they did, one of the biggest focuses they had at the regional level was to get their arms around it. So if somebody was building an application, it could become a formal process where they may have had a couple developers working on it as well. So they weren't just folks going off in different spokes and building apps. So they were able to kind of bring that together, but they had a lot of really good momentum and really good adoption because of it. The other one was a finance company, and probably, indicative of the industry. They wanted to test it out quite a bit first.
Okay.
They had a big app that they were looking to replace. It was one of their asset management applications, and they chose to build out the app, but the way that they built it was really smart. They listened to the advice from their CSM as well as the expert services team to basically break it down into smaller components. It's a very large app dealing with asset management, so they built it out in phases, and it allowed them to sort of get their feet wet and understand what the platform could do for them, and also allowed them to gain that momentum and adoption by building smaller pieces, as opposed to having an application that they were looking at and saying, okay, this is going to take us 2 years to build. You start getting into that slog, and the likelihood of that team staying all the way through for 2 years consistently becomes a little bit of a challenge, right? So by building them in smaller components, they were able to build applications in like a month and a half that started Lego piecing together over the 2 years, and built out that same application just as quickly. But it gained that momentum, and it allowed them to show better progress. It allowed them to get more confident in what they were doing. And they ended up growing out and building a number of other applications since. So it's been like I said, 2 different ways to approach it. But there's success in any way you want to adopt it.
And I'm interested though, obviously, when you've got a new customer and they've got an existing dev team, and I don't know if you've heard of this or you've been involved in it. Have you ever had a customer come back and say, our existing dev team isn't really keen to work with low code?
Yes, we have had that a couple times. It's actually interesting. At least from what I see, that was much more common when I first started
Yeah.
back in 2018 than it is now. And I think that shows, again, that conversation we had earlier of
Yeah.
the progression, acceptance, and understanding of
Yeah.
where low code is now and where it's going. Um, Now the conversations we have are more which low code is it, but
Yeah.
back then it was very much low code can't do what Java or .NET
Yeah. Yeah.
do. And like I said, I started out my career as a developer, and
Yeah.
there's a certain badge of honor of being able to write,
Yeah.
write lines and
Code.
lines of
Yeah. Yeah.
code
Yeah.
and have it become a real thing.
Yeah.
So, and I understand that. And there's definitely a source of pride there. It's almost artistic. Like,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you kind of your paintbrush is the keyboard, and you're
Yeah. Of
building
course.
applications that way. The only difference is, I guess, the paintbrush is more a mouse now. I mean, because you're
Yeah.
modeling, you're
Exactly. Yeah.
dragging
Yeah.
and dropping
Exactly.
a lot
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
anything else. But no, I think back then when we were talking about it, the way we really focused on it was when we were talking to developers who were a little skeptical, we always reminded them that at the end of the day, the benefit that they were providing the organization wasn't through the lines of code that they were writing. It was through the logic and thought process that they were going through to write that code. So if we could take away, and the way we explained it was, if we could give them a way that allowed them to build those applications more quickly and get those thoughts and those processes out of their head and into systems more quickly, they'd be able to benefit the organization faster. And on top of that, they'd be able to leverage, like we were talking earlier, what we call non-traditional developers.
Mm.
Folks that maybe not have that development background but have a technical inclination.
Yeah.
You can bring them into a team, and now instead of being a developer, now you're a dev lead, and you're guiding and advising and mentoring other people. So we really kind of showed that that's the goal at the end of the day. The goal is to make sure that we're extending that capability and providing more services to the organization.
Yeah. And I think low code's kind of offered, the technical, the kind of a lot of BAs, a lot of business analysts can get involved a lot more,
Yeah.
with low code, which is kind of something we're seeing quite a bit of.
Yeah, it's when I started here again, I look back at some of the analysts that I worked with, and I recognized a few of the profiles that very
Yeah.
much would have liked to use something like this. And
Yeah.
it's, a lot of them understand scripting languages from SQL, like
Yeah.
SQL and that sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
if you understand how to write database querying
Mm.
languages, the thought process really translate over
Yeah.
very well. You can build applications pretty easily.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were talking earlier about, obviously, the hot topic is AI. Everyone's talking about it. It's kind of
Yeah.
all the conferences are about it. I'm keen to know your view on kind of how you think the future looks. With obviously AI and low code, and
Yeah.
obviously the low code platforms are offering Gen AI solutions and options. But what's your view on it?
Yeah, it's really fascinating to me. It's something I've always been interested in, is that artificial intelligence and how far we can push it. We can go back and forth on a number of different topics around
Yeah.
this, but I think it is something I'm really interested in. I see it's funny. I like I said, my oldest son is about to go into college, and
Yeah.
I don't know what the world's going to look like in 4
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
being able to advise him on where to go and what sort of job
Yeah.
to, or classes to take, I'm completely at a loss. If I knew exactly what it was, I think I'd be a
Yeah.
very rich man.
Yeah.
But
You wouldn't be
uh,
talking to me, that's for sure.
I'd still be talking to you. I'd still be talking, but maybe a different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Uh, but no, I do see a lot of it. Right? It's the way I think about AI when it comes to low code is, again, I think about low code the way I think of of code, of
Yeah.
building applications. And how I think AI and low code can work together is really the same way. We see opportunities where we've seen examples of it in manufacturing facilities, where you have your daily reports and things like that from the line, and they get put into an application, and that application kind of culls through all of that information, and is able to take that and provide a summary back
Yeah.
to the supervisor. So the supervisor doesn't have to read through, lines and
Yeah.
lines of reports,
Yeah.
especially if they're on vacation, right?
Yeah.
They get the information, and they're able to sort of see what's happening and how that's going. Um, we've also seen things where you've got product and image recognition as well being used. So, if I've got a pen, I can put it down under a camera, it'll recognize the pen. It
Yeah.
might even be able to get out to Amazon and find the exact same
Yeah.
pen
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
offer payment. So I see the technology, the software being the facilitator, with AI being the brains behind it, of being able to go and do that.
Mm.
That's from a business perspective. As you start to get into development, that's where it really starts to get interesting to me. And how is AI going to impact the future of development itself? I do see an environment where you have future state, when it starts to get proven out a little bit more, but where you're able to accelerate that development capability and really be able to treat AI as if it's another developer, where you're peer
Yeah.
programming and you're able to have that build something out, and you're able to go and review what it did and make sure that at the end of the day it wrote the right code and it's
Yeah.
structured
Yeah.
the right way and that sort of stuff. And it's an extra hands on keyboard, if you will, by building out the application. um, and I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I can actually mention this. I think earlier this week we just released our Mendix 10.12 or
Yes. Yeah.
10.12, where we introduced our new AI component.
Yeah.
The name's Maya. It stands
Yeah.
for Mendix AI Assist. And this is our first real focus into. We've always had it, right? We had AI
Yeah.
Assist. We've had
Yeah.
capabilities that have allowed to sort of predict what you're trying to do and ask if it's the right thing and give you options. But this really starts to get into that deeper generative capability, where it's you're able to ask it how to questions, and it'll give you instructions back on how to do something that you're looking to do. It also has the capability start automating tasks and generating components of the application as well. So we're starting to work our way into creating more of that sort of
Yeah.
environment, where we're able to help those developers that much more.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing, is being able to give that developer experience a very positive feeling, and be able to improve how developers are using the platform, and how they're able to efficiently do their work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really impressive. And I think, when it comes to AI, I think even a lot of companies still don't know what their AI strategy really is, right? It's just
Yeah.
it's because it's around, everyone's becoming ahead of AI, and
Yeah.
within the business, but there's not really a vision of they're not really sure what they need to do.
Yeah, it's funny because again, I think about it very similarly to the way people thought about low code in the early
Yeah.
days of that.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many different things you can do with it. It's what do you want it to do
Yeah.
for you? And I think everybody goes to ChatGPT and asks random questions
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
often, but going from that to how does it really help you, I think is
Yeah.
really an interesting jump.
Yeah. Yeah. And as someone who's kind of dealt with customers, for majority of your kind of time at Mendix, can you kind of, I don't know if you've had these conversations before, or but what we like to kind of ask is, what's your message to customers who are kind of still skeptics of low code? What would be or either, what would be your message, or what's a conversation you've had in the past that you could kind of give as an example?
Yeah, I think we I think we've touched on a couple of them already. You got a
Yeah.
couple different layers of skepticism I think you've got to work through, and I think you still do. But like we talked about the developers,
Yeah.
and you talk about the leaders as well. At the end of the day, it's depending on who you're talking to, they're skeptical for a different reason, right? The
Mm.
developers generally don't think that the platform is enterprise level and can
Yeah.
really do everything that they need. So pairing them up with an SA or one of our expert services team to really show them the capabilities is an important thing for us to do, because it kind of opens their eyes to it.
Yeah.
um, the From a business perspective, as you start to get into a leadership role, actually there's that layer in between where it's program management.
Yeah.
It's the biggest fear there is am I creating a capability that's going to introduce more shadow IT?
Mhm.
And that's something I've dealt with in my whole life, managing IT departments and things like that
Yeah.
in the past. I actually had a side note on it. I had a controller one time who had a whole reporting database on a desktop server under his desk, and we knew
Oh,
nothing.
wow.
So
Wow.
like I
Okay.
know the scare
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
shadow
Yeah.
IT, but to show them that, no, we've thought about a lot of this stuff. We have a platform that has capabilities that allow you to see what's being built in it, what's being used, how often applications are being accessed or built on, or anything like that. And it gives them a little bit of comfort to know that they've got their arms around it and that
Yeah.
they can manage it more programmatically is another key piece. And then the executives, they all want to know, am I going to change my business and go in the right direction?
Yeah.
And so being able to show them that they can, using reports that we have, like our Forrester Total Economic Impact report, those sort of things, and showing them that this has been done in the past and that customers have realized the real benefit out of it that they were looking for. That's all good. And then I think as we go through that and they start to adopt it, the important thing there is making sure they realize it themselves. Um,
Yeah.
you're not going to, you could tell everybody all day how somebody else did it.
Yeah.
And it gives them a little bit of comfort. It might give them enough comfort to get you in the door.
Yeah.
But if you can't show them the actual value that they're receiving, they're never going to be bought in. And so
Yeah.
you've got to be able to do that. I think that's the biggest thing is just get that message right.
Yeah, and that goes back to probably, what we discussed before, that you can show them something really quick, kind
Yeah.
of, when you're kind of there, you can put something together pretty fast and present it to them to at least kind of grab their attention.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And just a final note, yeah, you mentioned obviously the new AI tool, but is there any kind of that you can share, or you want to talk about any future developments or things that kind of we can look forward to from Mendix?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different areas that we're focusing on going forward. I think like we've talked about a few times already, AI is not going away anytime soon. So
Yeah,
I think there's going to be, as we go through and as we release new versions, I think there's going to be some really interesting evolution to how we think about leveraging AI and connecting it to the tools you build or helping you build those tools. So I think that's going to be a real interesting piece as we move forward over the next probably year or so. And then the other piece is getting back to that programmatic approach. So we've got, as I mentioned, we've got the digital execution
yeah,
practice that focuses on change management. We are focused now on scaling that out, and instead of relying on just the people that we have in our organization to help our customers with that change, we're looking to put that into the platform a little bit more as well. So starting to get beyond that developer experience and starting to get into the program and the management experience of the platform, and making sure that we're really kind of accelerating that piece to get up to become, to show that it's more enterprise level and enterprise
yeah.
grade.
And I think, yeah, well, from what I can see, because this the platform's always evolving, isn't it? I can see all
Yeah.
these updates, every other month on LinkedIn. So it's good to see that obviously you're trying to make it as best as possible that the customer can get everything from the platform that they need.
Yeah, I don't think our product team sleeps.
Yeah,
With the amount,
yeah.
I mean, I'm impressed at how fast they put out new product, new capabilities, and how frequently they do it. So I don't
Yeah.
think they get much sleep anymore.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, Mike. It was really great to talk to you and hear
Yeah,
your kind of background and insights and views. And I look forward to maybe speaking again in the future.
yeah, it's great. Yeah, no, I appreciate the time as well. Thank you very much. It's been great catching up and good talking to you too.
Likewise. Thanks, Mike. Thank you for listening to today's episode, which is brought to you by ITRAC. We are a leading staffing firm that solely specializes in supplying both contract and permanent low-code professionals to organizations globally. Navigating the niche landscape of the low-code market requires the best talent, and we recognize its critical importance for our clients. Whether you're a company looking to strengthen your team, an individual seeking the next career move, or someone entirely new to the world of low-code, we're here for you. Our extensive experience and in-depth market knowledge enables us to quickly pinpoint the ideal candidates while offering expert advice and support at every stage of your low-code journey. Reach out to us through our website or connect with me directly on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to assist you. Thank you once again for joining us today. We'll be back next week with another insightful episode. Until then, take care.